What's happening, everyone? Pragmatic Attitude. Thank you guys so much for checking out this review. So, we're going to be talking about the new Liam Neeson action film. Yes, of course it's an action film called Retribution. So when I first saw the trailer of this film, or like the only time I saw the trailer in the theater, which was the time where I was like, I'm going to see that. Even though this morning I checked and it was at like a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes, I was kind of excited for it. I was like, nothing's coming to mind right now, but just seeing this trailer, reading the premise, this had to have been a movie back in the fucking 90s, right? And that's kind of like why I wanted to see this movie. Like, I saw the trailer and I was like, it's gonna be 90 minutes. It's 90 minutes. It is about a dad who's forced to drive his vehicle nonstop with his two kids in it and do a series of orders from an anonymous user on the phone, and if he doesn't do these things, then there's a bomb strapped to the bottom of the car, then it's gonna blow them up. Why am I laughing about this? It's just so silly, man. I'm like, Jurassic Park 3D comes out this weekend for its 30th anniversary, and then we're getting a movie like this. 90s kids, let's go to the theater this weekend. So let's just start off with this review. So the first thing I'm going to say is that, again, when I saw the trailer for this, I didn't know how this film was going to come out. It looked fun for what it was, and I was hoping that it would be fun in that throwback 90s thriller sort of way. But man, from the opening credits, and me and Jacob were actually the only ones in this whole fucking theater. And thank God, because there was a lot, especially in this, like, intro where I was like, what? Like, just a lot of fumble and what. So, from the opening credits, you get this, like, display of tech shit, and I was looking at Jacob, and I was like, I don't know if this tech-based credit sequence is for the phone, the car, or the bomb. But you know what I mean. When films like this have that cryptic tech intro that's supposed to be ominous and, again, cryptic, hinting at the movie, like, you get it, but I'm like, what is it? Why? Next thing, we also get a shot of someone just on their phone, and it's presented in the way where you think it's going to be the first sequence of the movie, where it's someone on their phone and then they walk out of their car and it just blows up, and I'm like, huh? And then it turns out that this is coming from Liam Neeson's character's TV screen, and the background while Liam Neeson is just like beating the shit out of a punching bag. I'm like, can we just slow down? I just had to point all that stuff out really quickly because it was just the most nonsensical, most goofiest shit. But now I will say this, actually getting into the review. This movie, it starts off really quick, and in saying that, I know that this is only a 90-minute, like, kind of throwback 90s-esque thriller. And the movie tries with its pacing, like, to flesh out not only this family's dysfunctional relationship, but also just the characters in general. Like, I'm just gonna say this could have been just a 90-minute film where Liam Neeson's character is taking his kids to school, which it is that, and then while he's doing that, he just gets a phone call from an unknown number with someone that's like, hey, you got a bomb strapped to your car, buddy. Buckle up. These kids are going to be late for school. I got a series of demands. Which, it is that, but it could have been just that. They didn't have to go and try and flesh out these characters to, like, set up this whole family thing, which I respect it that it tried doing that, but it's one of those things where I'm like, the fact that they did that, it actually made the film a lot goofier, because it's just a sense where I'm like, look, you should have just embraced this 90s throwback 90-minute movie and just gave us exactly what we were expecting to be. Not take it too seriously, just give us what we expected, give us what we want, give us those thrills in that nostalgia way. I mean, it's saying that, make sure that this movie is something that should be a movie in general, but this just made it look so silly because it was one of those things where I'm like, you're taking the movie a little bit more seriously than it needs to be. This is already only a 90-minute movie. The fact that you're actually trying to flesh out these characters and this relationship that's coming off really goofy and awkward and cliche, it just didn't need to be there. But getting to the movie's actual plot, it starts quick in a way where I think it's well paced enough, like in this degree, and I think that it's written in a route that is fine enough and even surprising in some degrees, where the film's story, like where this premise alone doesn't start right away, but there are little like hints where if you look at them and you think about them hard enough, you're like, that could be a little nod to something that could transpire. That could be a little hint that something is going on that may not seem like it's actually full front right now. And then there are those moments where that like really establish that the movie is actually going, where it just felt like a fun thrill ride. Like it's that thing where you know the movie's starting now. They do that, I think, not only well enough, but they also do it where you've seen this kind of stuff before. For me personally, I went into this film knowing what I wanted, and it gave me that as far as like what I wanted out of this throwback thriller. Like, for example, what I was saying earlier is that this family's kind of a little bit clunky. The kids aren't getting along. They don't really have the best relationship with their dad. Their dad has a rough marriage. With their mom, it's all just kind of out of whack. So when they all get in the car and he's driving them to school, it's all awkward silence. You know, the boy's got like the headphones on, the girl's on her phone, the dad's just kind of, you know, this dad that the kids are kind of shutting out. But what I like about it is that it's that thing where, based off of the intro that we got, you're kind of waiting for something to happen, and you're kind of feeling like something is happening or is going to happen, especially based off of like the hints that personally I grabbed before this. But there's this scene where a phone starts ringing, and it's just ringing. No one's really picking it up, and finally Liam Neeson's character looks at his son in the mirror, and he's like, Are you gonna get that? And then the son goes, That's not my phone. And then Liam Neeson's character goes, Well, is it your mom's? And the kid's like, no. And so right there I was like, huh. Okay, so we know what this is about. We know this is when shit's finally taking place. But I just thought that was like a fun little build-up moment. Like for tension and for build-up and for not really knowing that this is actually how this film got started, and also knowing now that this is addressing how the film's gonna start, it just like kind of like fastened me in for, again, that throwback 90s thriller that I was kind of hoping for. Again, the biggest thing about this though, and just about the movie in general, is the pacing again. Like even after this happens and it's officially established that the film is in full swing now, and you know that shit has gotten into motion, there are breaks, I would say in between tension, but just in general, there are breaks that you would think that are maybe supposed to be going for like that filler, but they just don't really feel like anything at all. Like, for example, I liked when Neeson's character got the call because, so throughout the whole movie, he's got an earpiece where he's listening to this anonymous voice, and I liked it because it's like, he's got this already tense relationship with his kids. They just think that they're getting driven to school, and then he's got this earpiece on because he doesn't want to alarm the kids. He doesn't want to bring awareness. He doesn't want to get them involved. And there are times when that like gets involved with the story where it's actually more or less the center at times. And, you know, I like that. It's uncomfortable. It's tense. It gets awkward. And it works as far as the story and, you know, just as a plot point. But just as far as the actual tone of the movie, it doesn't feel as intense or as gritty as, you know, it should have been. And just the layout in general, it just makes the film come off feeling lukewarm and dull. And it's one of those things where, especially with the world of the movie, you feel like they have the right ideas and you feel like they have enough to work with. They're just not really using it to the like fullest of its potential, and it feels like they're just kind of letting things go to waste in this movie. But what I will say is that as an adrenaline based like mystery thriller, whodunit, you know, like who's the caller behind the phone. Like, why are they doing this? Why Liam Neeson's characters and his family, like, and I know that sounds cliche and that sounds about like expected, and it doesn't really deliver as far as like anything original or new. Again, this fits every box as far as 90s throwback thriller, but there are again story plot points that, even though I don't think that the tone or the pacing was the best, there were stuff in the movie that I thought really worked, and not only made you really ask these questions, but made the film engaging as a story, brought other questions into the mix, which I can't really state without it being spoiler territory. Just more stuff got involved that had me invested that I wasn't expecting to be as invested, and I wasn't expecting to get as much out of it at times as I actually did. Another thing really quickly, going back to the pacing, is that there are, again, like I said earlier, that there are stuff and plot points in the movie that work fine enough. But again, also like I was saying earlier is that, especially with this world and with this being a 90-minute movie, there are things that happen in it, and especially with this being a throwback film kind of, where you watch it and I think it gets a little bit too on the nose, where you're like, okay, this is definitely a movie, but it came off in the point where some of the build-up and tension was actually just taken away. Again, like how I said earlier, where the grit in the movie, it needed to be there. The pacing in the movie, it needed to be proper, where it wasn't, and things just happen too fast, where it just takes away what this film really could have been, how it should have been delivered. And it's one of those rare occasions where I'm like, I feel like the movie could have benefited better being a little bit longer, so that they could have worked on that pacing a little bit more and could have fleshed it out a little bit better. But also, in saying that, getting toward the end of the movie, there are a couple of sequences that just go on so fucking long, where I'm like, okay, if you could have condensed this and could have used this pacing and this time to make the build-up and the pacing a little bit better, boom, you could have had yourself a proper 90-minute throwback thriller. But now, lastly, in saying this, the second half of the film, I actually didn't have too many nitpicks. It's much better directed. I also think that the story and just the pacing is ironically just more or less that 90s throwback thriller, that adrenaline that you wanted it to be. I think certain sequences in the second half go on a little bit too long, and I think that there's stuff in the first half of the film that just shouldn't have been there, and just overall should have been better paced, should have had more grit, should have had more build up. So by the end of the movie, I was kind of in a weird spot. I was like, in some ways, I feel it's fine. At other times, I was like, what? Either way, it felt like a throwback film. But also, just overall, I feel it lacked the proper pacing and grit needed for it to be that solid throwback filler that I wanted it to be. And overall, I gotta give Retribution a mixed review. I would not call this film bad. I would not call it good. Even looking back at the film, and some parts of me that are like, I feel it's fine, I just don't see myself going back for it. It is a fun wave of like nostalgia. Again, it's a 90s throwback 90-minute thriller, and it's the next Liam Neeson action film. There isn't anything particularly special about this movie, and there isn't really much worth revisiting or anything really new, but there were things that I was surprised out of it, and as someone who went in this film wanting certain things, I got some of those things. I just think, again, it could have benefited with better pacing and more grit. But yes, guys, that is going to do it for my review of Retribution. I don't know what my next review will be. I plan to see Jurassic Park 3D this weekend because I did not see that when it released 10 years ago. Also, I really wanted to see Bottoms, but my city hasn't actually gotten that into its theater, so next week we will look at Bottoms. That sounded off. But yes, guys, this has been my review of Retribution. Let me know what you guys thought about this movie if you guys do plan on seeing it. Let me know what you guys thought about my review. And let me know in the comments below what you guys thought about everything, man. Let's talk. But yes, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in the next one. Take care.